All right. Well, we have people who will continue to trickle in. I want to get us started. Hmm. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for gathering today. I want to start by appreciating your participation. We come to this space with a diverse array of experiences, perspectives, and emotions. Amid our diversity, through conversations I've had with so many of you the last 2 weeks, there is a common thread that weaves us together. And that is right now, we are all hurting and everyone is suffering. Differently, yes. And we are all in great pain. It also comes out differently for each of us. And I want to say, however it is coming out for you right now, however you are feeling in this moment, whoever you are, wherever you are, we welcome you. And we welcome you to the Combatants for Peace community. It really is a miracle that we've chosen to gather together. Today's topic is humanity and hope. A friend messaged me this morning that the title of this talk is both a question and an answer to our excruciating pain and the fears that we are facing. Hope and humanity are a radical commitment in a time of war. And it's not easy in a time of war to connect with those who are different than you, to practice listening, to stay curious, to offer the gift of connection. It's not easy to be a peacemaker in a time of war. So I want to honor the miracle that I see. 556 of you here with more than 1,000 people who registered for this talk. Some could not make it and they'll watch the recording. But to me, this is a miracle. More than this, I want to acknowledge and give my heart to the miracle that is Combatants for Peace. For those of you who are new, Combatants for Peace is a joint Palestinian and Israeli community working in solidarity to end the occupation, discrimination, and oppression. We believe in a future where all people from the river to the sea, live in peace with dignity, justice, and liberty. The movement was founded almost 20 years ago by Israeli combat soldiers and Palestinian fighters who chose to lay down their weapons and link arms with one another to nonviolently co-resist the occupation and to begin to mobilize a joint community committed to peace. They're the only movement that was founded by opposing members of an active conflict. And as such, they've been nominated for 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. The movement is guided by the values of nonviolence, and they are showing the world that there is another way. I want to applaud especially the bravery of our 4 speakers today and our 2 moderators. As I said, it's very difficult to be a peacemaker in a time of war. It's especially difficult to be a peacemaker in partnership with the people that your society would deem the opposite side or the enemy. And so I welcome our speakers. Jamil Qassas, he is the Palestinian CFP co-founder and the current co-chair. Alon is CFP's Israeli co-founder. Shahin is a Palestinian CFP activist. And Ayala Shalev is CFP's Israeli Joint Memorial Ceremony General Manager. I also thank and welcome my board members who are our moderators, Gili Getz Israeli American, and my board president, and Aziz Abu Sarah, who is a Palestinian American and a member of our board. So before I turn this talk over to Aziz and Gili, some quick housekeeping. This talk today is an hour and a half. It's a bit longer than our normal talks, but it's so important, and we want to provide enough space. It will be recorded, so after the talk, we'll send you out the recording. You can watch it again and you can share it with others. Also, please note that the chat room today is not open for community discussion. We want to honor the voices and the time and the space for our speakers. However, we do want to take your questions. So if you have questions, please send them to me. Please send them to Lindsay. And we will share those questions with the moderator and work to answer your questions at the end. Also, to share that one of our speakers, Jamil, will be speaking in Arabic. And so we have a translator, George. George, thank you so much for helping us out today. And Lindsay is going to explain the logistics for how you use the translation feature. And then from there, we will hand this over to Aziz and Gili.
Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be together with you today. I just wanted to explain how the translation will work. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a globe where it says interpretation. Today, as Tiffany shared, Jamil will be speaking in Arabic. So only when Jamil is speaking in Arabic, please select the interpretation and click on English in order to hear Jamil speak in English. When Jamil finishes speaking, please make sure you select original audio interpretation off in order to hear everything clearly. Thank you so much.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry. I was admitting Lindsay was talking. So with that, I want to hand our conversation now over to Aziz and Gili. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, and thank you everyone for being here today for this very, very difficult time we're going through. I'm speaking to you right now, broken and devastated from the unimaginable violence, killing, and suffering and horror that Palestinians and Israelis are now drowning in. A reality of mass death and destruction on an enormous scale. No words I can say can capture the horror that our communities, our people are now going through. Our friends and families are experiencing grief, shock, pain, horror, and fear as violence rages across the land. We have friends in the kibbutzim that experienced mass killing. We have friends in Gaza. We have friends in the West Bank. All are going through unimaginable grief and pain. More than 1,400 Israelis have been killed by Hamas attacks, and more than 3,000 injured, and 200 kidnapped into Gaza. Entire communities of Jewish communities that live next to Gaza were destroyed, entire families killed. The bloodiest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and mass kidnapping that the families are now have to pray for their loved ones, their fate unknown. The Israeli army has dropped 6,000 bombs on Gaza so far, one of the world's most densely populated region, with 2.2 million people, half of whom are children. This is the equivalent of bombs dropped on Afghanistan by NATO in 1 year. Almost 4,000 people, including more than 1,500 children, were killed so far. Entire families, entire neighborhoods destroyed. Approximately 1,200 have been injured, and about 1,000 bodies are still trapped beneath the rubble. Already facing dire humanitarian crisis after 16 years under Israeli blockade, The humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza is getting more dire by the minute, with desperate needs for food, water, electricity, and medicine. Growing fears of mass expulsions from Gaza, echoing the Nakba. Many of the descendants of the Nakba are living now in Gaza. In the occupied West Bank, at least 79 Palestinians, including 12 children, were been killed by Israeli forces and settlers in a never-ending system of oppression and annexation. And in Israel, increased crackdown on dissent for those calling for peace. It's becoming more dangerous to talk about peace, including attacks on peace activists. Surrounded by the sea of darkness and death, the CFP movement, the Combatants for Peace movement, decided to meet, to share our pain and our experience with each other, and hold on to, for dear life, to our own humanity, to try to guard the small flame of hope in a hopelessness and desperate time, to still believe there's another way and that violence will only bring more violence. Both societies at this time do not have space for this conversation we're about to have today because of the enormity of the suffering, the enormity of the loss, the unimaginable trauma. We are honored to hear from the movement today. We don't pretend to have all the answers, but we are now willing to give up on each other and the small flame of hope we carry, even and especially at this difficult and painful time for all of us. It's my honor to turn to Aziz, my friend, to share his thoughts and ask our first question of the panelists.
I'll leave that question to you, Gili. I'm just trying to gather my thoughts, hearing you, and you said exactly everything I wanted to say. I'll just add to it. On Saturday, when I woke up and heard the news, I did not realize how awful things will turn out to be. And as the day went, I realized it wasn't just awful in the sense of a national catastrophe for both Palestinians and Israelis. It was awful because I realized I know also some of the people who are being hurt. And with every day that has passed, I found that I know more and more people, Israelis and Palestinians, some of whom are peace activists, fellow activists with us who have fallen. The thing is, with violence, it does not really recognize who's an activist and who's not, and who's pro-peace or who's not. And when the machine of death comes, it comes against everyone. And yet, as you said, many people have a hard time right now sympathizing with one or the other, as if we need to check the nationality, the ethnicity, the religion, the color of the person before we decide if we can cry over this child or we should not. And this is why I love this community, because there aren't many people right now, unfortunately, who feel we can cry for everyone, for Israelis, for Palestinians, for every innocent life that is being taken. You say that it's become dangerous to be a peace activist. That is true. And I just actually, before coming to this call, had a conversation with a friend who was telling me of people being arrested for holding signs saying, "We stand together," as an incitement. We stand together, Israelis and Palestinians, being seen as incitement. This is how far things are going. And this is how hard it is to be a peace activist right now. It's hard because also we're accused of dual loyalties. When I sympathize with my Israeli friends, I'm not loyal enough to Palestine. And when I sympathize with my Palestinian friends, I'm not loyal enough to my peace work in the eyes of some. My parents called me a couple of days ago saying our next door neighbor was shot, 15 years old, in the head and killed. Their house is full of tear gas. When I start talking about that, people are like, "Oh, but you're a peace activist. You shouldn't." No, we speak against all atrocities. And one of the most powerful things I've seen this week is a few people who spoke against more violence have often been those who experienced the worst violence this week. People like the Katzman family, people like Inon's family today, who published a story in The Guardian saying, talking about their family, their parents, how they lost them, and in the same time saying, we don't want to see more death. And I think that's our message here. The first and foremost is we don't want to see any more suffering. We don't want to see any more deaths. And we want to find an end to this madness that continues to take us every year, every 2 years, every 3 years through another cycle of violence where thousands of people do lose their lives. And then we back to normal as if nothing happened and never get to touch on how do we really put an end to this. So Gili, I'm gonna pass back to you for our first question to the panelists.
Thank you, Aziz. So the first question will go in alphabetical order. Is we in the movement try to center our humanity. That's what bonds us together. That what grounds us together. And I like to ask maybe start with you, Jamil. How are you doing? How are you holding up? How are we finding you in this really difficult moment?
People hear me? Just thumbs up. People here. Okay, thank you. تفضل جميل. يعني these are really conflicting feelings. I don't want to say that I'm not different from my comrades or friends. We all are going through this dark time together. It's a kind of a period of revenge, hate. This is what's dominating the street now. Hope and peace, and the flame of hope that, and the flame of love is declining, shrinking slowly. I personally, I have enough motives to stay in this position, not to lose hope. The Palestinians went through several wars. This is the fifth war, and they've seen a lot, from settlers, killing of people, and they harvest their olives, for example. A lot of settlers and military. But what keeps me hanging on to hope is that all the wars that we went through from 100 years ago of occupations, that war never yielded any peace. Wars only create pain, suffering for people, and darkness. Honestly, on Saturday, I woke up and I saw the news until noontime. I did not know what to say or what to think. I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. Palestinians always are the side receiving the hits, usually. So this is usually this is the other way around. So we're not used to this. So I was really confused what's happening. I was checking, looking at the news. I've seen uh, uh, the massive size of the event, and I know that Israelis now are going through this kind of crisis, and Pal Palestinian. That's why Palestinians and Israelis has to stand together stand together beside this flame of hope uh, to guard it. I always said this is not our choice. This is not the choice of anybody who believes in peace. I always called against war and will continue to call to end the war until this war ends. My Israeli friends, I really feel sympathize with you because we went through this. We know the pain, and I know the meaning of loss, losing someone you love. And I remember at some point when I lost my mother. After she spent 6 to 8 hours, waiting for coordination to move her to hospital in Jerusalem until she died. So I saw that the entire world is black, dark. So I couldn't think of like sharing anything with any Israeli. So I felt that everything became dark. I met an Israeli friend a few days after. At that moment, I felt that how important it is to stand together in these dark days. And we will be like the lift to each other, people who can help each other and support each other. So I pay my condolences to the Israeli community and, of course, to the Palestinian community because this war machine, is still going on. What's happening in Gaza is a genocide. Hospitals are being bombed, churches being bombed, civilians have been bombed indiscriminately. Until this moment, around 3,700 Palestinians were killed in Gaza. 70% of them are children and women. I cannot find any justification for this war. I see that I I don't see a real voice in the international community and the Israeli community, a real voice that is calling to stop this war, cutting water and cutting humanitarian aid to hospitals and Gaza. I mean, will shut them down, and this they are operating on patients without anesthesia, and this is a very tough and rough humanitarian situation in Gaza. So what I really hope from the international community and to people everywhere is to raise their voice to end wars, to end the war, because the war cannot bring any good solution. So I give the floor for whoever wants to say anything.
Chen, maybe you can go next. Talk about how we find you in this moment, and how you see the movement processing at this moment.
Yeah. Thank you, Gili, and thank you, Aziz, and thank you all for joining us tonight. This is not obvious at all. We are in one of the deepest and lowest point ever, not only in our conflict, but in our Combatants for Peace life. Since 18 years ago, when we co-founded the movement, we knew that it's going to be a long journey, but and along the way, we faced some obstacles and challenges, but we never thought or believed that we're going to face such a horrific times as we are experiencing now. I want to start by sharing an experience that I had today. I went to a funeral in Kibbutz Shahin, in a funeral of a friend who was murdered 2 weeks ago in Kfar Aza, in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, and she was buried only today. The funeral took place only today because of the mess with the bodies and everything. And there were hundreds of people there, a lot of wounded people. And there was a light in this funeral. Her two boys and one daughter didn't mention the Hamas, didn't mention terror, the word terror or terrorism, didn't say anything about revenge. They were all speaking about how she was a peace activist and how they failed to bring peace before she was murdered, and how they are still believe in peace, all of them. And they were referring to Gaza as our neighbors. They were referring to the people in Gaza as human beings. And I was feeling that I'm, in this ocean of sorrow and despair, I felt that I'm experiencing, not enlightenment, but some kind of moment of hope. And I want to refer to what Tiffany was opening with when she said that Combatants for Peace is a miracle, because we are not giving up our hope. We're not giving up our humanity. And I want to add one more word to this. It's true. We are in the middle of catastrophe and a disaster. And we are experiencing every day we are having a Zoom of activists speaking, talking to each other, sharing the pain, sharing the grief. We are producing a miracle for ourselves for an hour and a half every day since it started. And I want to add one more word, and it's responsibility. The only responsibility that we have is not to give up hope and humanity. We have no responsibility for the hatred, for the violence that both sides are taking, for the crimes, for the war crimes, for the babies who are being murdered on both sides, and so on and so on and so on. We have only one responsibility, and we are committed to it. We are fulfilling it in everyday life, and now in the deepest conflict that we ever experienced. And we are doing it because we all have been through violence. We thought that violence, we were part of violence because we thought that this is the implementation of our responsibilities for our societies. And we understood at a certain moment that our responsibility is not for violence, not for the justification of violence, but our responsibility for non-violence as the only way to fulfill or to implement hope and humanity. And we are still doing it. My sister Ayala, my sister my brother Jamil, we are doing it, and we are committed to continue doing it, even if we will be the last ones in this region to survive or to stay alive. We will never give up on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chen. Aziz, maybe you asked the second question of our
Yes.
other two sisters.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, in such a calamity, in such a terrible time, what does a peace organization, a nonviolent joint movement, what do you do? What has been the activities? What has been the work? What's happening in your office at Combatants for Peace in Israel and Palestine? And we can start with Ayala. We can't hear you, Ayala. You muted, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Tiffany's or Lindsay's moving me around and I'm running after the unmute. Sorry, can you focus the question again?
What is Combatants doing these days? What are your activities, if there are any, whether internally within the organization or outwardly toward the community?
Yeah, I think Chen said that we're focusing on us now. I think I have this mental picture. I'll share it. Don't laugh. You know the Turkish coffee, the black coffee, what we call, when there's the powder you put in and you stir, and everything's like stirring and whirling inside. You can drink that coffee right then, right? And then after a while, everything settles down, and then you know where you are. You see a clearer picture. And I think right now, we're the coffee inside the glass, and we're being shaken. Our world's changed in a minute, totally changed in so many aspects. We're living in a nightmare, and I don't think there's much we can do. And the only thing we can do, that's what I think, is to find each other and hold tight. Those of us that can right now do it, I think gain some sense of quiet, because knowing, we know that the other side is still the people we care about, and not like these evil monsters that the mainstream portrays the other side. And I think it's on both sides, and that's what we've been doing. Chen spoke about it, Gili spoke about it. I want to also say, like 2 or 3 days into the attack, we had a binational Zoom call, only the closer group of the activists, like the heart of the movement, for 2.5 hours. And it was beautiful and hard. And for me, it was like very quietly, very delicately checking the question that was not asked, like, are we still together? And the answer was a definite yes. It's hard to describe how much strength this gives, together with all the other awful, terrible, raw feelings that are working inside all the time. And yeah, yesterday, I can't remember days, but I think it was yesterday, we had a binational Zoom for 70 participants. We worked closely to make it possible, to plan it. And that was also a bit of light. It went good. So right now, holding together, being delicate to each other, working to collect ourselves together. So when all the powder settles down, we'll be able to do this needed work of sounding the voice of nonviolence and just resolve of this madness that is living here right now. That's what we can do.
Mai, would you like to add anything? And maybe if you were involved in any of these gatherings with combatants, or if you can tell us how it's been for you.
Good evening. Yeah, to me, it was a bit different. I mainly am an activist with the combatants normally in the field, bringing nonviolent communication and facilitating. And this is the very first time that I am involved very closely within the office work. And I think it came in the right time. Yeah, waking up to Saturday morning was very painful, abnormal. Nothing can justify. Again, same thing. I have friends on the other side, and one of the main things that I wanted to do was to immediately move, to go there, to go to my friends, to go check, to see what happened. And I felt like I was all the time hit by the separation wall that separates me from everyone. And it's again thinking, wow, this is a repetitive cycle that keeps putting us in this. They keep using us as shields to continue oppressing us. And meeting today and working with the combatants this last 2 weeks and having this strong ground to call and to say, hey, I know we're all shaking, but let's meet, let's still talk, and still meeting and still figuring out how to talk and how to sit. And honestly, I went immediately to the international friends. I felt that my home is shaken, my people are being killed, losing the control again. So I immediately contacted my international friends and I communicated. I was like, okay, now our home is shaken. It's invaded again by hatred, by killing, by blood. And we really need you to hold all of us. And I must say, I don't know what I would have done by such support of friends and also friends of the other side. Even to come here today, I was in touch with the friends from the other side to talk, to discuss, to see how to support the connection and how to bring nonviolent resistance, not only nonviolent communication, to our activism. As Chen said, this organization was built to end oppression on all and for all, and to end occupation. It's been hard in the West Bank, and I can see where it's going to go if this continues. We lost one of our very amazing peace activist friend from Kusra, who was killed along with his cousin and uncle and another young man in Kusra by settlers attack. And other friends from Jericho who were beaten up and threatened. We haven't left the house since Saturday. My daughter is not leaving the house. She's schooled in Jerusalem. So we are not doing it no more. We're saying no because we don't know whether to worry of the army to the right or the settlers now to the left, and there is the blockage that is being put back. The bombing of Tulkarem is also another impose of how this system, this violent system, keeps trying to tell us that it's the only way. And this is exactly why such meetings are very hard. This is exactly why calling on each other in such time, it's hard, because it's breaking this system. It will break, and they know. They know if we start meeting, if we start partnering, if we start putting action, they know we're going to break this cycle of war for them. We're going to break this system that they keep putting on us, making us lose our closest people, our family, our friends, our community, our hope in this land. And that there is a possibility when there is, maybe I'm a dreamer, but there is the love that we carry also for each other that is not being talked about. I'm happy to see the international now is speaking, saying we love each other, Muslims, we love each other, Jewish, we love each other, Palestinians, we love each other, Israelis, we love each other. There is a way. And this is why we have the combatants to hold and to put into an action. So we'll never witness another 7th of October. We'll never witness such a war on Gaza and the killing of all the kids of Gaza now, the women, our fathers, our brothers, our families. War is no solution. And this is why we are here now. So thank you.
Gili, you want to ask our next question?
Thank you, May. And I was in these meetings, and they are so difficult as we're trying to hold each other's humanity. And maybe, Chen, you can give us a glimpse into the society, the Israeli society, going through an extraordinary, shaking, historical event, and the level of dehumanization that comes with it. And we have a lot of questions about from the audiences about what we think the solution should be, how we think the leaders should do it, and what all that, and kind of in this moment where we see so much a collapse in both society of the dignity and humanity of the other side. Give us a sense of how you experience it, how we experience it, that given the context of the conflict, the ongoing occupation and siege, and how does one look at this reality when one centers humanity first, when one centers belief in nonviolence, belief in peace, surrounded by immense darkness and dehumanization?
Yeah, I think that's the main question, Gili. And I have to be honest. I mean, I have to be honest with myself, honest with you all. When I woke up on Saturday morning and I saw the sights on the media, something a very old awakened in me, which is the hatred, the revenge, the dehumanization. It still lives in me. I didn't get rid of it yet. And I think it's human, so I hug it. But my heart is still one heart. And it was like one uninational Jewish Israeli heart, Zionist, that led me into violence. I was a major in the Israeli army because my grandfather is an Holocaust survivor, and he told me never again. And I woke up to sights. I mean, this is the Israeli psyche now is full of terms and images of the Holocaust. That's where the Israeli discourse, the Israeli public opinion, the Israeli media is fueling the Holocaust, never again, and so on. And that's the initial justification that led me to become a major in the Israeli army. So I know everything about justification for violence. And I know because in my experience in the 18 years in Combatants for Peace, I know exactly the mirror picture of these justifications in the Palestinian society, of the Nakba, of the catastrophe, the terror, the images of piles of bodies, of being expelled from your home, and the continuous killings along the year. But so the tendency is to experience the present time without contextualization. That's the tendency, to see what I feel right now, and this is what should be done right now. But this is exactly the thing that led me into violence, that led me take weapon and to be able to kill my or Jamil in my previous life. So I was there. I know how you justify there is no never again. There is no other choice. But I know that there is another way. I know that there is a choice. I know that while I'm in this inner state emotionally, or feeling that there is no other way rather than take a weapon and to protect myself and to kill people and to return to the initial dehumanization of it's either us or them and all this thing, I know that that's the time to remember my humanity and to return to the responsibility to contextualize. And this is my responsibility, to see the horrors and the horrific terror attacks and killings and war crimes that Hamas did on this Saturday, while contextualizing that they are living for 16 years in the biggest prison in the world, in the open air. 2 million people are depriving of human rights, living in prison, living under occupation, living under blockade, dehumanized by Israel and the rest of the world. And same in the West Bank, remembering how many children and how many families are under this terroristic frame of occupation and apartheid. I have nothing else no other way to describe this. And again, this is never a justification of horrors and terror attacks like we saw and we are seeing when families and babies are being killed. So my single heart, my heart, which is one that used to be only Jewish Israeli one, and my single brain that used to be only Jewish Israeli uninational, has become binational. I have a binational brain and mind, and I have a binational heart. And this horrific last 2 weeks won't change that.
Thank you, Chen. And thank you for talking about this, because it is definitely what everyone around is feeling and thinking, is just how do you deal with so much loss, and then how do we enlarge our hearts to not be an Israeli heart, a Palestinian heart, and rather have compassion for everyone. Jamil, I want to ask you about something that maybe is getting less coverage right now. You're living in the West Bank, and we talked about Gaza, we talked about Israel, but very little is talked about what's happening in the West Bank. And we know it's been pretty hard times to also be in the West Bank. News came out today of people being kidnapped and tortured by radicals. 53 people have been killed. Maybe the number is higher by now. That was the number yesterday. There's a lot happening also in the West Bank. And how are you dealing, how this Combatants is dealing with this, what you're hearing from the West Bank, and just give us the context of the West Bank and all of this.
Okay, to start with, the situation in the West Bank is different, of course. Well, it's not like completely different, but it's different. Today evening, yesterday. It's just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, asked him just to raise his voice. Okay. Okay. On Saturday, last Saturday, 7th of October, at the Gaza envelope, all the West Bank entrances were closed. All the roads between the cities were closed. We were living in a very unpredictable situation, very worrying. We know that the situation in Gaza is a million times more difficult than in the West Bank, but we were living the fear. We did not dare to leave our homes. The military was invading the West Bank almost every night. And we have seen the difference between when they invade prior to 7th of October and when they invade today. We can see the revenge in all different axes, different ways in the West Bank area and even inside Israel. Any Palestinian they see they try to get revenge from. So yesterday they invaded the Haitian refugee camp where I used to live. 14-year-old boy was killed because he was looking at them through the window. There were 7 people injured in the Haitian refugee camp. Same thing in Tul Karim, 13 martyrs, and the number of casualties and injuries. They have a green light from Smotrich and Ben Gvir and Netanyahu, of course, to do whatever they want in the West Bank. We've seen what they have done in Yatta, how the settler shot a Palestinian man, I mean, that he did not actually attack him. So at almost point blank, the settler shot the Palestinian in Kusra. 4 people were killed the same day by settlers. And as they were trying to bury the dead, they were attacked again by settlers. So the situation in the West Bank is about to explode. And things are moving in a difficult direction. I hope things will end with less damage. But although there is nothing that looks positive, but we keep hope alive, and we always think that there should be some hope, and Israel must get rid of these extremists in the government. We have been living in wars and hatred. It's systemized. You can see that it is systemized hatred by the government. We, in our office, we could not go to work because it's difficult to commute in certain places. So we do most of our work on Zoom. It's a very difficult and unusual humanitarian situation. This is generally the situation in the West Bank. Of course, we are much better situation than Gaza Strip. But we hope that this war ends so we can both come together and try to find ways to end this conflict. War is not good for anybody. So there is no clear vision for the future. This is not a solution. What's happening is never a solution and will never be a solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamil. And just to say, we in the movement argued for many years that the current situation is unsustainable. There is no such thing as status quo. It's all going to explode in everybody's face, which is what's happening right now. Can I ask Ayala, can you talk to us a little bit about, I have a lot of questions about the movement's opinions on many things. Can you just explain to us maybe how is a statement from a binational movement in this moment is thought about? How do we think about what we say as a movement, whatever the opinions are? And also, if you can tell us a little bit about how we Israelis at this moment blame the government, how Israelis processing of who's to blame for this horror, and how it is processing of what to do. I know there's a debate about Israel, what exactly to do, but in a lot of blame about who's responsible for this, for letting this attack happen. Just if you can just walk us through some of those ways that you're experiencing.
Big question. I think it's very clear, and the media on that same day started talking about the failure, the intelligence failure that allowed this to happen. And then, I don't know, for 4 or 5 days, nobody from the government came out to speak. And we saw an amazing organizing of the civil society organizations and all the protest groups that, until 2 weeks ago were protesting against the government, started to being a human aid organizations, helping, doing what the state should be doing. So this also started coming up in the media. What's going on here? Why is nobody's talking to us? Nobody's doing what, like taking care and doing, organizing things that the state should. So that's another a point that everybody looks at the big picture now, 2 weeks into this, and knows that there was a big failure here. But again, like I said before, it's still happening. It's still so raw. And there's voices saying, okay, the government is responsible, but right now we need to focus on the fighting, and it's not the time to make, to look for people to blame. And then there's another voice saying, we need to know now who is to blame and to get rid of them, so this can be taken care of in a better way. I think internally, this thing came at a very challenging time, because I'm guessing all of you saw the protests against the government. So it's a moment of an inside break inside Israel, and a very big mistrust in the government. So for me, it's a hope that if this, what they call getting back into Gaza on the ground, as long as it's not happening, maybe as time goes by, more and more people will get that it's an unreasonable thing to do, and this can be stopped, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they can talk before they kill all these people, and not after, because eventually we'll have to talk, right? So why not now?
Thank you. Thank you. My one question that people from abroad in the States, in Europe, in all over think in these kind of times, what do we do? What's our role? And I've been seeing a lot of people abroad being very involved and unfortunately maybe very involved in falling for propaganda, falling for a lot of hate messaging. And I wonder what you think Americans or foreigners, people not from Israel and Palestine, what they can do, and if any of that is even something they can do vis-a-vis our governments, the US government, for example, and the messaging and the signals that those governments give us.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you know, again, for me, as I said on Saturday, after realizing what exactly has happened, my immediate contacts was the international friends, the one that are very much also familiar to our homeland, familiar to the situation, have been here. Some of them have been here for many years as well, volunteering. So I immediately turned to them. I turned to them because I was shaken, and also my home again was shaken. Both people, Israeli, Palestinian peace activists, were shaken, and I felt like, okay, now I have this stable anchor that I can now turn to. And I also felt like this is the right time to turn to say, hey, now I also need to call you, to talk to you, and we need to start holding each other accountable in keeping this mission going, no matter what it means to bring, whether to bring this meeting to happen or to bring to actually be involved in more and more action in order to make sure that we are stopping first the war, bringing back hostages and the prisoners, and functioning on a non-violent resistance. And this is where I see the responsibility, and also thank you, a responsibility that is not to be, and your presence is not to be taken for granted, but exactly the responsibility of the international community in holding both people, in holding Israelis and holding Palestinians, in holding this land with the faith that we both can actually live here in liberation, not only a peaceful talk where we cease fire or we stop the war on Gaza, but an actual action where we actually, as we've been doing in the past 2 weeks, and it's unfortunate that it took us such a tragedy to wake up, calling Congress, writing emails, organizing nonviolent resistance protests, getting involved in nonviolent communication as well, using this tool to meet with people, which we have a lot of it being offered also by our activists within this land, which is an extreme importance for the international to bring and to hold such a space and to be able, as they are the free one, I would say, especially in my name, to actually move and to actually be out in the streets to speak in our name and to say, hey, we see both, and we see the cry for life from both. We see the pain in both, and we see hope and faith in both. And we're going to strategize, we're going to be in action, we're going to get them involved, not only in sponsoring us financially, which is extremely important, but also in the support in taking action in changing this dynamic, this system that keeps again using us as shields, and each one of them in their position. Even though now we're witnessing discrimination even against people who are speaking about peace and even holding hope for both people, they are being pushed away from the streets and being asked to be silent. And this is exactly where the role comes to say, no, we're not going to listen to you. This is exactly what they want us to do in order to repeat the system. So now we're going to stand up. Now we are the ones that are able to speak, to do, to act, to hold you, while we are also holding each other and holding our responsibility within our own land. But as You've been hearing us say it's such a huge, big responsibility, such a huge, big weight, and all support, especially support that takes action, is really, really needed. And all faith, I would say, is also needed, that we walk through this war until it's in faith in each other, in order to, wake up again to the Holy Saturday, and to a Holy Friday, and to a Holy Saturday, Sunday as well, where all knows that this land can hold it. And this is where the international community is actually needed to stand up wherever they can stand up, to bring people into togetherness and to take action wherever they can take action, and to raise awareness on what is going on. As you see, we are very much silenced. This movement is very much silenced. This movement is very much threatened. We're being threatened, both sides. We've been threatened working with each other, and it cannot be. It's again, the fear of us coming together also with the international community is exactly what they don't want to see, and it's exactly what we should be doing, to say, no, now we know the truth, and now we are here together, and now we're going to make this a change. We're not going to repeat the system. We will not allow you to repeat the system on us that keeps again and again separating us, killing us, causing war, causing genocides on each other. It cannot happen. And this is where they stand, while we are standing here, holding our own communities as well, maintaining the hope of the possibility of ending the war on Gaza very soon, bringing back hostages and prisoners, and functioning in togetherness for a true liberation that it brings not only, again, peace, but really freedom, where we sleep knowing we're going to wake up tomorrow morning, and our kids will continue to dream, and our family is gathering by the weekend, and nobody should be able to take this away from us. But it's us and the international community that comes with awareness and acknowledgement that we really need also support from. Thank you.
Thank you, Mai. Thank you for this important voice at this time. How important these voices are at these times. It's truly such a courageous voice. Thank you so much. And just to say that if friends in Gaza don't know if they're going to make it through the night, no one in Gaza right now know if they're going to live tomorrow morning. They just don't. Everybody feels that they can die at any moment. Chen, I'd like to ask you, since 2006, when the movement was founded, one of the principles that it navigates is that we hold humanity grounds us. Every human being, every life, every innocent life is precious. Every pain is human pain. Every mother mourns her children is sacred. And we hold that together with the mass imbalance of power in this conflict. And we hold that together with the immense asymmetry of every space, in every way, including this very conflict. And the movement has been navigating this reality, holding these two truths together. And if you can touch on that in this moment, the disparity of power that we see in this conflict, in this moment where there is no space in either society to see the other or process the other's pain, but the truth remains. Here in America, we found that many people can't grieve or can't express pain for Israeli Jews because they are the occupier, or they are and it's so dehumanizing. At the same time, as you and I know, the Israeli society is saturated with deep dehumanization of the Palestinian people. Can you just touch on that from your experience, being a leader in this movement for so long?
Yeah, but first I want to add something about your previous question about you, American people, you and responsibility of, I mean, clearly you have a lot of influence here and you are partners. And I mean, let alone the Biden visit here and the military aid that the US is providing. But the truth that you are talking about, Gili, or the truths in plural, is we're still holding on to them, that there is no military solution. I mean, the US should be a major actor in this solution that in the end, there must be a political solution to this problem. And it means that I'm talking as a co-founder of the Hamas. Seriously, in 89, 80, 90, I was a young officer in Gaza Strip, and we were giving envelopes with money to Hamas people because Israel's strategy was to strengthen the Hamas against the Fatah. So the divide and rule and the empowering of the Hamas was the Israeli strategy. It didn't happen by chance. I mean, this ISIS thing that grew up here in our backyard was our strategy. Netanyahu is for more than 20 years, his main strategy is to strengthen the Hamas and to weaken the Fatah. And it continues what May was saying, Mai was referring to, is that your role, your responsibility is to strengthen us, the sane organization and the non-violent organization and the peaceful organization and the people who are non-violently oppose this frame of divide and rule and strengthening the extremists on both sides, because that's what feeds these political entities that are ruling Israel and Hamas. So the Fatah in this triangle is, or the Palestinian Authority is the weakest part of this triangle. And we are even weaker because we are believing in more progressive principles, and we have a different vision as an organization, as a binational organization. So, in short, what you have to do is to put pressure for a political solution, for peace in this region. I know it sounds crazy right now, and to strengthen the non-violent, peaceful forces here. It's not late, not too late to do that. And what comes to my mind is that that now people are asking about, well, so you want to dismantle the Hamas, or you want to destroy the Hamas? It's not the question. We built the Hamas, so it would be very difficult to destroy it. So while we are drowning, both, we are drowning in the water, people are talking, offering us a glass of water, more water. No, we want to be offered land because we are drowning together. So that's what I mean. For so many years, we are sitting in this car, in this vehicle, in the back seat, the tiny community or the tiny organization force of the peace camp on both sides. And we said, we are going to fall to the abyss. We are going to reach the cliff and to fall to the abyss. And we are shouting and we are shouting and we are shouting. And now when we are in the air, people are asking us, what do you offer to do? We are falling. We are insisting on shouting together in this falling car into the abyss that we have to remain together now. And there is no military solution to this problem. There is only political solution. And when both sides will, not only, all parties, not both sides, will collaborate on that, there will be no ISIS, no Hamas. The peace forces will be strengthened to a point that they will be able to make peace. And I still believe that peace is achievable.
Thank you, Chen. I think it's amazing as all of this happening, there's a lot in need. I know in Israel, there's a lot in need among Palestinians, and yet the one thing everybody wants to give is weapons, which is definitely for a peace organization, for an organization of joint resistance, is not the first thing that comes to mind of what is needed right now. 14 billions in weapons actually more than help Israelis and Palestinians, helps American weapon makers. And that's something we often don't talk much about, and maybe today isn't the right time to talk about, but this is not money that the US is giving to Israel. This is money the US is giving to arms manufacturers that eventually you only get the weapons. And if we invest only in military and only in weapons, that's what we get. If we invest in peacemaking, that's what we get. And unfortunately, when it comes to the US investment in the region, despite all the lip service that you'll hear about peace and yes, and after we destroy Hamas, everything will work well. It's just like Bush once said, after we, take Iraq, I'll make peace in Israel and Palestine. After, it just never comes somehow. Jamil, there's a lot of challenges to a peace organization after such thing happen. And I've been in the region and been working with you actually when similar things have happened in the past. And it creates significant challenges, not just for you as an organization, for us as a group, but for our society. Going out now to speaking to our society, Palestinians or Israelis, is a lot harder than it was 3 weeks ago. How do you assess your ability to work in the next few weeks as an organization, and what's needed to be able to reach people to do joint resistance in the next few months, a few weeks, when you're going to be facing probably more anger when people think of all the loss of life, more people who want revenge. There's a lot more violence in the streets. How does that affect your work and your mission and you as an organization?
بداية شكرا عزيز.
Okay, thank you.
شكرا عزيز.
Aziz, thank you. It is very difficult. Our mission is very difficult. As I said, it's a lot of money just, going to a war machine. This is terrible. And the American people are actually paying for this, the cost of war and weapons from taxpayers and the public sector. So every American citizen is responsible for this military aid given to Israel. I hope that if such amount of money to be invested in rapprochement between people, Palestinian people and Israeli people, instead of being put into military arsenal. Unfortunately, their goals are different than ours. Despite that, as we said earlier, our mission will be very difficult among both Palestinian and Israeli communities. You can see now how the Israeli society reject to talk about reconciliation and peace now, because they still grieve, and the Palestinians the same. As members of this movement, we should not spare a second. Our faith should be subtle and strong. so that we face the society and have courage and to be transparent and honest and tough at the same time. War does not lead to love. It doesn't lead to prosperity either. So our mission, I know, is very difficult. It needs support. Of course, moral support, financial support, all kinds of support is needed in this situation from the international community, both Palestinians and Israelis. What we have built in 20 years is being demolished or has been demolished in 1 week. But we are willing to rebuild from the beginning, to work together because we're still together. I'm very proud of my friends here, very proud of their subtle positions and attitudes, and also my Palestinian peers, despite the pain they are going through. Our friend Ahmed, who is a board member in the Palestinian chapter, his family is in Gaza, and today he's with us on Zoom, and yesterday he was with us as well. Fatima, who's in charge of Hurriya school, yesterday she received news that her family was bombed yesterday and they were in the church. And she is with us and she couldn't insist to stay with us. So the logic and the reasoning that leads us to peace is partnership and reconciliation. This is what would lead us to safety. And clarity of the political spectrum in the past 20 years is a big responsibility that should be connected to the international community. They hold this responsibility. The implementation of the Oslo Accords on the ground. In the past 75 years, we haven't seen an Israeli martyr except for Rabin, who was murdered by an Israeli right-winger, and recently he was released. Unfortunately, if there was leaders or a martyr in the Israeli society, real leaders, I think we should have got done with this, I mean, long time ago. With the military abilities, peace for Palestinians is a beginning of a new life. It establishes a better life for the future. It's a basic thing, very basic, and this is very much needed. That's all.
Thank you so much, Jamil, for these words. The war is destroying everything. It's also destroying peace work. So please help us, help the movement, donate to the movement, support the movement. We'll end with Chen's a poem. He would like to read us a poem to close us out. And then a few words from Tiffany. And thank you all for being here. Chen, please. With your closing words.
If it's okay, if you don't mind, you guys, I'd like to just close with Ken's poem. So I'll just say a couple of things and then can we leave with your poem? Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you everybody so much. I hope that in this time, this provides some light to you. It encourages you that a way of peace is possible. I know that we're up against something much greater than ourselves, and I want to share, especially for those who are new to us, um, our movement is rooted in the theory of change. It came from an academic researcher named Erica Chenoweth. Through extensive research, what she found is that when citizens rise up nonviolently, it only takes 3.5% of the population to bring about radical change and ensure profound structural, even revolutionary shifts. That's actually a smaller number than it takes for violence to shift a society. So all we really need as a movement is 3.5% of the population. That is what Combatants for Peace is doing. They are providing a model and they are creating a space for people to join nonviolent co-resistance and a commitment to peace. So please, you are part of that 3.5% that we are trying to build. Stay with us. I also encourage you in times when, as Chen pointed out, we get these triggers. We want to pick sides. We want to move to black and white thinking. We want to abandon the thought of and the convictions of being a peacemaker. I encourage you to pause and to breathe and to be gentle with yourself, to be gentle with each other. And I also encourage you all in times of quietness to think of each other, to think of CFP, to think of their faces and their eyes. And this is something that I am doing right now in this season. And I am sending them every bit of love and hope and solidarity that I have from the core of my soul. And I encourage us all to do this practice to stay connected to our humanity and the goodness that is inside of us. And I do that when I think of all of you. Also, as Gili mentioned, and as we have been saying, it does take financial support to make this movement possible and sustain it. Lindsay and I will send out more information about what the movement actually does. One of the main things is being a joint nonviolent civil society. And this work that they're doing right now to stay together and a haven for those who are sick and tired of the violence and who don't know where to go, drawing more people in. That's the most important thing they can be doing right now. And we do need your support. American Friends is the fiscal sponsor of Combatants for Peace. They get no government funding, and neither do we. So this is the only way we sustain the movement is through the donation of individuals. So we ask you, please help us in this way. And with that, I want to give this to Chen.
And Jamil wanted to say one more thing, if that's okay.
Of course.
Okay, Jamil. To end, I just also want to say, before we close Zoom, to stand a moment of silence, have a moment of silence for both who were killed, for all who were killed in this cycle of violence.
Thank you for that, Jamil. Thank you for that.
Shukran, Jamil. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you hear me, Gili?
Yes.
So I just want to end up with now when we were silent for a minute for the loss that the people that we lost. I want to say something about the day after. It's a poem by Wisława Szymborska, the Polish Nobel Prize winner. She's not Israeli and no Palestinian. And she wrote something about the day after, because we all know that will be a day after the war. And we all know that peace will come. The occupation and the apartheid will be brought to an end, and we will live in peace. And this is how it's going to be. After every war, it calls, the title of it is The End and the Beginning. After every war, someone has to clean up. Things won't straighten themselves up after all. Someone has to push the rubble to the side of the road so the corpse-filled wagons can pass. Someone has to get mired in scum and ashes, sofa springs, splintered glass, and bloody rags. Someone has to drag in a girder to prop up a wall. Someone has to glaze a window, rehang a door. Photogenic it's not, and takes years. All the cameras have left for another war. We'll need the bridges back and new railway stations. Sleeves will go ragged from rolling them up. Someone, broom in hand, still recalls the way it was. Someone else listens and nods with unsevered head. But already there are those nearby starting to mill about who will find it dull. From out of the bushes, sometimes someone still unearths rusted out arguments and carries them to the garbage pile. Those who knew what was going on here must make way for those who know little and less than little, and finally as little as nothing. In the grass that has overgrown causes and effects, someone must be stretched out, blade of grass in his mouth, gazing at the clouds. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. We will send this recording out, and our love and our prayer and our thoughts and our care are with you. Thank you so much, speakers, Jamil, Chen, my Ayala. Thank you, Gili and Aziz. We send you, Combatants for Peace, all of our love and support. We are with you. We will remain with you, and thank you for remaining together. Bye, everybody.
Bye.